Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today we turn to talking about the children's TV show Sesame Street. This long-running, legendary, educational kids show has been a hallmark of the PBS channel for generations now. I grew up watching and so did many kids older and younger than myself. It's still on to this day and it all started airing way back in 1969. That's almost 50 years ago. Really a noteworthy feat, and I hear the show is still kicking strong too. They still have their great sense of humor, funny comedy sketches, current celebrity guests, and, of course, the puppet characters we all know and love, like Big Bert, Elmo, and the Cookie Monster. And of course, the topics of today's story, Bert and Ernie. These two best friends are nearly inseparable on the show, and they're also as different as night and day personality-wise too. This was always a big part of their charm as well. They're basically like a Muppet version of the Odd Couple, and they were also even voiced by longtime friends and collaborators Frank Oz and Jim Henson, who not only were the main creators of the show, they're also legendary entertainers and puppeteers across the Hollywood landscape, developing other puppet-related characters like the Muppets, including Kermit, Miss Piggy, Gonzo, and so on. And also, Frank Oz was the original voice and puppeteer for Yoda from Star Wars, amongst other big hits which I don't even have time to get into. So needless to say, Sesame Street and its creators have had long, storied careers in entertainment, which is probably why they're currently being targeted by the SJWs with their gay agenda in the press. The current queer invasion of Sesame Street started a few days ago when one of its longtime writers made the claim that Bert and Ernie were gay. Now this is something that's been joked around about for years now, but to have a Sesame staff member come out and try and confirm this rumor is a little weird, especially this late in the show's run. Not to mention, of course, it's a goddamn kids show, so maybe the character's sexual preferences shouldn't be coming up at all. Regardless, we're living in a PC, social justice warrior era that tries to make everything gay, trans, or bi or something in order to push leftist, degenerate agendas. For more details on this story, let's turn to an article from the New York Post called Sesame Street Writer Backtracks on Claim That Bert and Ernie Are Gay. Check this out. Sesame Street writer Mark Saltzman, Echoes, says his comments that he wrote Bert and Ernie as a gay couple based on his own same-sex relationship were misinterpreted. As a writer, you just bring what you know into your work, he told the New York Times on Tuesday. Somehow in the uproar, that turned into Bert and Ernie being gay. There is a difference. He also said the show should include gay characters, but that they should be humans and not puppets. And he also didn't deny the fact that Bert and Ernie have a deep connection. They are two guys who love each other, Saltzman said. That's who they are. Whoa, 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 whoa. Hold the phone there, Saltzman. Sounds to me like this dude was trying to rewrite a bit of the show's history, and now he's backpedaling. I mean, think about it. Now that gay people are really in vogue and they can basically get away with anything, Saltzmanberger is trying to pretend Bert and Ernie were gay this whole time. And well, I'm not buying that bullcrap. Bert and Ernie are just a couple of cool dudes who like hanging out and kicking it. End of story. They're not going off and having gay sex off camera. They're puppets, for Christ's sake. And of course, they're also characters in a children's TV show. There's no need to sexualize their relationship in this fashion. And there's also no need for the show to include gay characters, as was suggested. This all smells like an SJW invasion to me, like Invasion of the Body Snatchers or something. Saltzman is trying to take over Sesame Street and turn it into another leftist, creepy little nightmare. I don't know what it is about liberals trying to get gays and trans people into prominent roles, especially on kid shows, but it seems super messed up and kind of creepy to me. Can't we just let kids be kids anymore? There's no need to go all queer kid stuff and start teaching kids about gay kissing and butt sex. And since there's no sex education about straight couples on the show, there's no need to overdo it with the gay stuff either. Maybe an episode or two could mention it. There's certainly nothing wrong with a gay character or anything, but petitioning for a bunch of full gay cast members is really a bit much. Saltzman, who joined the show as a writer in 1984, kicked up a furor when he told QWERTY that the relationship between the two puppets was modeled on his own with longtime partner Arnold Glassman. These guys both have man in their last name, and they're gay for each other. Just put that out there. And I always felt that without a huge agenda, when I was writing Bert and Ernie, they were gay. Saltzman said in the interview, I didn't have any other way to contextualize them. The other thing was, more than one person referred to Arnie and I as Bert and Ernie. His comments ricocheted across the internet, with many seeing it as confirmation of the puppet's subversive, same-sex relationship. Frank Oz, the famed puppeteer who helped create Bert's character, went on Twitter to shut down claims that the characters were gay. Well, thanks for setting the record straight, Frank. Looks like we had a virtual coup within the Sesame Street ranks here, or an attempted coup. And couple that with the clickbait-hungry, pro-gay agenda press people, and you got a real mess here. And let's not forget in the first line of this section, the Sesame Street writer was talking about queerty, as if that's a name that could be taken seriously. Come on, it's no wonder Saltzman went all Nathan Lane from the Birdcage here. He was being interviewed by a pro-gay reporter for a pro-gay website or whatever. So Saltzman felt a little empowered. He felt daring, or dare I say, cocky, and decided to confirm he was writing Bert and Ernie as gay in his head this whole time. After this, the gay reporter went ahead and pretended that meant they were actually gay, and it was confirmed. But it really doesn't. Bert and Ernie had been around on Sesame Street for 15 years before Saltzman, before he even came on the show. And in this situation, if one writer pictured the characters as gay in his head for part part of the series, that really doesn't mean much, especially since there was never anything gay or sexual at all shown on camera. But I'm sure Queerty needed a juicy title for this article, and they've got to be desperate for views by now, so they made this claim anyway. And the rest of the SJW press gladly latched onto it too, because of course they did. Nothing is more virtuous or ego boosting than supporting the gays, especially in 2018, current year. It seems Mr. Mark Saltzman was asked if Bert and Ernie were gay. It's fine that he feels they are, he said. This is Frank Oz. They're not, of course, but why that question? Does it really matter? Why the need to define people as only gay? The Sesame Workshop also released a statement on Twitter saying that Bert and Ernie do not have sexual orientations. As we have always said, Bert and Ernie are best friends, the statement read. They were created to teach preschoolers that people can be good friends with those who are very different from themselves. Even though they are identified as male characters and possess many human traits and characteristics, as most Sesame Street Muppets do, they remain puppets and do not have a sexual orientation. Yeah, but I have to ask, what about Kermit and Miss Piggy? You know, they were a pretty hot item for a while there, and I'm pretty sure the Cookie Monster is getting off on those cookies too. He's a little too into that. Oh, and also, what about the Count? That guy's got some sexual vibes to him. He definitely gets laid. No, but really, I'm actually quite surprised and impressed that the Sesame Street team stood their ground here. In this day and age of social justice warriors and gay and trans trying to take over everything, it's refreshing to see Sesame Street and Frank Oz stick to their guns, as they really should. And this isn't anti-gay or anti-trans or anything. It's just the creators refusing to give in to some gay writer's secret fantasy. Their intention was to make Bert and Ernie best friends. That's it. In fact, I always got the feeling that all the Sesame Street puppets were children actually. Big Bird may be huge, but he's only like 4 or 5. And all these children puppets like Bert and Ernie and Big Bird, they shouldn't be sexual at all, straight or gay, or whatever other fake orientation leftists are going with now. The Muppet Show puppets are the ones who are older, hence the romance between Kermit and Piggy as I mentioned before. So, you see, there actually is an explanation for all of this. Sesame Street is for kids, with kid puppets, and the Muppets are for teens, with teen puppets, and so on. I also really like how Frank Oz addressed the gayness in general here. The ending of his response really rang true to me when he said, why they need to define people as only gay. Well put, Mr. O. Why do gay people categorize themselves as gay or lesbian, or anything else? Straight people never say I'm a straight or I'm a breeder. And speaking of breeding, you ever notice how it's the straight couples who are making the gay babies? You never really see any gay couples making straight babies. Just saying. Regardless though, I appreciate Frank for making the greater point here when he really didn't have to. Identifying people as gay or straight really doesn't matter, and it shouldn't. You're basically born that way, so it's really nothing to be proud of. And to an even finer point, people really shouldn't be trying to identify longtime characters and their sexual orientations. If you don't know what it is already, it just doesn't matter. And to do this on a longtime children's TV show is even more weird and pathetic. Now for another angle on the story, let's turn to a pretty heavily downvoted video from the CBC called Are Bert and Ernie Gay? Check this out.
Is the bickering
incidentally, Bert,
between the two members of one of television's most beloved couples. Bert and Ernie on Sesame Street, of course, they're roommates, they're best friends, but are they more than that? You know, that is a question that has been debated for decades.
Jesus Christ, tone it down, lady. You're not talking about people debating climate change for decades. This isn't the conspiracy theories around President JFK's shooting. We're talking about two side characters on a children's comedy show. Sure, it's a legend of a show, and this topic has been discussed before too, but it's not a burning question that demands an answer in order to save the world. It's a silly joke question that really doesn't matter, so temper your expectations.
And Michael Serapio, it's all starting up again.
It's starting up again, and this is thanks to an interview that was done by the original writer behind the Bert and Ernie characters. Now, his name is Mark Saltzman. He gave an interview to an online news site. It's called Queerty. It caters to gay, lesbian, LGBTQ news out there. And
again, I can't let this guy or that article pretend a news site like Queerty is to be taken seriously. And by the looks of this CBC reporter, he's batting for the same team as them and the original writer too. That original Sesame Street writer who was being interviewed. He was gay, and so is this reporter in the magazine. It's seriously looking like a gay conspiracy here, with all this agenda being pushed on gay websites and by gay reporters on networks. And all of it coming from a story from a gay former Sesame Street writer who stepped a bit out of line. And that's why Frank Oz and the Sesame Workshop had to step in and shut this gay shit all down, as we went over before.
He basically said that when he wrote Bert and Ernie, he was basing it on his own real life relationship, as he was in relationship with a film editor by the name of Arnold Glassman. And so he once again raises this issue that Bert and Ernie were more than just roommates. They were more than just best friends. Actually, there you can see Mark Saltzman with his two
They're
characters.
a couple.
They're a couple. They're actually loving couple. Single beds aside, they were a loving couple.
Settle down there, guys. Just because the writer said they were a gay couple in his head doesn't mean they were in reality or on the show. As far as everything seen on camera, they're just friends. Not gay or straight, one way or the other. It is funny how these CBC reporters go along with this nonsense though, saying that Bert and Ernie are a gay couple, as if that's true now. And they're saying this live on public access Canadian television. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, if you didn't know, the CBC is the Canadian Broadcasting Company, and they're fine with telling their millions of left-wing, socialist SJW Canadian viewers that Bert and Ernie are gay now, even though it's totally not true. Next, things get really ridiculous when these crack reporters start talking about the puppet's genitals. No, I'm not kidding, really. In response to reading the Sesame Workshop's comments that clarified that Bert and Ernie are not gay and not sexual at all, this is what the CBC had to say.
Even though they're identified as male and possess many human traits and characteristics, they remain puppets and do not have a sexual orientation. So says Sesame Street.
So says Sesame Street. And I have to say, the Children's Television Workshop, there was a display at a New York museum which showed the puppets, and there's no waist down. They're all like waist up. So.
What the heck, dude? This guy is really trying to check out Bert and Ernie's junk. Weirdo. This report is really going off the rails here now. I think it's time the floor producer pull the plug on that gay guy's mic. And it's no wonder the CBC disabled comments on this video. It's becoming a real train wreck. In the end, thankfully, Bert and Ernie are safe. Sesame Street's creator Frank Oz and the production team stood their ground here and refused to let a lone, pro-gay former writer try and hijack two beloved characters from the show. And shame on Queerty, the website, and all the other SJW rags that picked up this story, as if it were true. And of course, the CBC really blew it here too. Listen here, gay Asian CBC reporter guy. I love Bert and Ernie as much as the next guy, but quit trying to look down their pants, you pervert. This is supposed to be a goddamn children's show after all. What do you guys think? Are Bert and Ernie lovers? Is Sesame Street right to stand up for their original vision of the characters? And when will the liberals stop trying to make everything pro-gay and pro-trans and pro-Muslim or whatever? Comment your thoughts on everything below, and thanks for watching No Bullshit. See y'all next time.